peeking a bit. I need you to move it away.
Don't look at my list.
I can't even tell you really who's starring in it because it'll just give stuff away.
Well, then just saying that gives it away. Okay, cue YouTube voice.
Hello.
Welcome to Introvert Theater's Films of the Year, not really awards, it's a top 10 list. So, sort of misleading is that these are not films that necessarily came out in 2021 or this year. They are just our top 10 films that we personally viewed this year, regardless of release year or date or whatever. Because we're about discovering films and enjoying films, not necessarily making videos every time about what I don't know. This is just 10 films we liked.
Our top 10 viewings of 2021.
Yeah, 10 to 1. Okay? So we're going to start at 10. I'll do 1 and then Jenna. Oh yeah, I'm Terry. It's me, Terry.
I'm Jenna.
Yeah. And this is Introvert Theater. We have bad social skills and
we're going to be stuttering.
Not suitable for... I'm not suitable for public socialization, so I stay in my basement and watch movies. Okay, so we'll start at 10. We'll give our 10, and then we'll go to 9, 8, all that whole stuff.
So we do not know what each other have on the list.
Yeah.
So I feel like we might have an idea of some of them, but we don't know the order. So we will be probably surprised by some of the choices, but we'll see. This
was torture to make. I can't narrow it down to 10. I wanted to do a top 50, but that would have taken forever.
Yeah. So
we'll say our film. We'll each do our piece, and we'll say a little thing about it, then we'll move on. We'll also have a little bit of an honorable mentions section because there's so many films that I want to put on this list, and I'll do that. We'll do that before we do our number 1. Okay, so my number 10 for 2021, okay, again, not necessarily coming out in 2021, although this one happened to come out in 2021, was The Night House. So it's directed by David Bruckner and starring Rebecca Hall. It's definitely a horror/thriller. We had planned to go see it in the theaters, but she kind of chickened out because she'd never seen a horror movie in the theater and didn't know she would scream audibly out loud. So it was later at night and I kind of went because I really wanted to see it. I loved this movie. It was... you looking at my list?
Nope.
Okay, I'm keeping this up. It was... the cinematography was amazing. There's a lot of really interesting shots. There's a lot of things going on without giving anything away. There's a lot of things going on with duality and things like that. So they use mirrors and windows and things really, really well. Rebecca Hall was amazing in this movie. Really interesting kind of tones and themes around grief and I guess I'll say some kind of brief synopsis of what the movie's about without giving anything away. The movie starts with Rebecca Hall losing her husband to suicide. And she has no idea why he took his own life. And the story just kind of snowballs from there. Really, really good acting by everybody involved, especially, like I said, again, Rebecca Hall. Really cool story. Awesome ending. You may not like it. Lots of stuff to read into in this one. It's a little bit art house. I don't think a lot of people saw this film, at least in my circle. But I absolutely loved it. So The Night House is my number 10.
Yeah, and he actually rewatched it with me at home. I liked it a lot as well, for someone who's not huge on horror movies. Okay, my number 10 is Mud.
Oh.
Yeah, so Mud is a movie I think about all the time, and I think it was one of the first slice of life movies where I was like, this is the genre I love. So it was released in 2013. It was directed by Jeff Nichols, who we discovered this over the last year. Probably my favorite director, probably. It's starring Matthew McConaughey, Reese Witherspoon, and Ty Sheridan, and Jacob Laughlin. Ty Sheridan, I really like him.
Yeah, for those who might not remember, sorry to interrupt you, Ty Sheridan, you've probably seen him in stuff. He got to start really young. He was in Ready Player One. He starred in that, so that's probably the most kind of notable thing that he's been in.
Yeah, so he always kind of has the same personality in movies, but I like him a lot. So this movie was about... Matthew McConaughey's character is basically on the run. He's hidden on an island. I'm going to try not to give any spoilers. He's hidden on an island, and these two boys, Ty Sheridan and Jacob Laughlin, end up running into him. he is waiting to escape, but he's also waiting on his lover named Juniper, who's Reese Witherspoon, and he's hoping to reconnect with her. It's basically the story of... It's a coming-of-age story. It's a bit of a thriller.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It would have been on my top 10 if I hadn't seen it. Like, I've seen that movie a couple of times. I watched it with her, thinking that she'd like it. And there's a lot of themes for me. It was a lot of themes of... one of the bigger things is a lot of themes of masculine relationships. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a beautiful touch on those different types of masculine relationships, whether it's male friendships, father-son, surrogate father, stuff like that. It's really well done.
It's like Ty Sheridan sees in Mud what he hopes to have seen in his own father, but then he grows up and realizes more things at the end.
Highly recommend that one.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll try to move along as quick as possible without...
We do ramble a lot and rant, but we'll try.
Okay, so my number 9,
okay,
released in 2020, is Psycho Gorman.
No way. I thought about putting that on my list.
So, Psycho Gorman, I believe, was a Shudder exclusive. So, Shudder is a streaming channel that's pretty much just horror. I could be wrong with that, but it's directed by Steven Kostanski. Ensemble cast here, but the notable starring is Nita Josie Hannah, who she plays Mimi, which is this. And so Psycho Gorman is this like horror, comedy, sci-fi mishmash, like major practical effects. Like so it's like I feel like it's trying to play homage, like do homage to 80s practical effects films, whether it's sci-fi or horror. Lots of gore, practical effects, big time, like I said. In the vein of kind of like Power Rangers type of costumes and stuff like that. So, really funny movie. Ensemble cast. Like, everybody's great in this movie. So, the guy in the suit of Psycho Gorman, because he plays this type of alien creature. So, I guess, again, I keep skipping the synopsis. These two young kids are playing a game in their backyard. They find this weird stone or artifact. It releases this sort of alien demon guy named Psycho Gorman. And he's out to kind of just kill and destroy everything, and he's just super vulgar and wants to, threatening everybody all the time. And the young girl Mimi, played by Nita Josie Hannah, if I'm getting that name right, young girl, she finds the stone thing that basically she has control of him, so he has to do whatever she says, and just all this hilarious stuff ensues. And the two actors that play her parents are hilarious. She hangs out with her older brother; he's hilarious. It's just, we watched it here for a friend's birthday in a group, and it was just, I just absolutely loved the movie. Would you say
it's family friendly? Like people could watch it with their kids?
Yes and no. Mm-hmm. Depends. I think your kids are,
like 10 and up.
Because it's so, like, it's ridiculous, a lot of the stuff. Even the gore, like, nothing's too serious. So, but some of the stuff's hard to watch. Like, it's so kind of gross, but in a really fun way. There's a lot of morbidness, especially with some of the scenes that you'll see. But it's just, again, I'm rambling. That movie, I just loved Psycho Gorman. Hoping to get a sequel to that film. That movie came out of nowhere for me. I absolutely loved it.
It was hilarious. Okay, my number 9. I feel like you're not going to expect this. I don't know. My number 9 is The Killing of Two Lovers. Released in 2020.
Yeah.
So we actually streamed that kind of on a whim.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we weren't really looking to enjoy a movie that much that night.
Yeah.
We put it on and completely blown away. It was released in 2020. It's kind of a slow burn drama movie. The director is Robert, I'm going to butcher this, Machoane or McElwain. I'm sorry, Robert. Don't know how to say your name. It's starring...
If you're watching.
If you're watching, Robert, because we're going to be famous. It's starring Clayne Crawford and Sepideh Mofi. I don't think I've seen her in anything else.
I don't think I've seen either of them. You think you saw the main protagonist
Clayne
before?
Crawford in Lethal Weapon, the show. I really liked him in that. So this movie tells a story of a man who is separated from his wife. The children are living with his wife, and he lives just around the corner. And he's basically desperate to reunite with his wife and to make the family work again. In a nutshell, that's what it's about. There's themes of marriage and love. I would say the turmoil a man feels when he's trying to keep the family together, trying to make things work, divorce. Yeah. There's not much more I can say about that.
I almost forgot. I kind of forgot about that movie. That movie would have been really close to making my top 10, and even my honorable mentions.
Something I thought about too when I was researching this movie, when I put it on the list, is remember they use a noise a lot. So
yeah, it's got interesting sound design. Like they're using very odd noise, and I feel like it's supposed to represent like the constant ruminating that the lead character is doing in his head, the constant emotional roller coaster he's on, just trying to get his family back together and rekindle things with his wife.
Yeah, I would say the cinematography and the score do a really good job at just really showing how torn up inside he is. Really, really good movie. Would definitely recommend that.
Yeah, The Killing of Two Lovers. That's a great movie. Good?
Yep.
Okay. My number 8 is Nobody from 2021.
I didn't think that would be on your list.
So, director Ilya Schuler. Gonna get that wrong. Again, if you're watching Ilya, sorry. So it stars Bob Odenkirk and from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, if you're familiar with those two shows. So so sort of like think of John Wick, but with a more comedic, lighthearted tone, and maybe a less physically imposing or capable lead in Odenkirk versus Keanu Reeves, right? A similar type of story narrative, which is funny because it's the same writer. The writer that wrote John Wick also wrote Nobody. So similar vein. You have this guy, average dude, something happens, the house gets robbed, and he doesn't quite, handle it and save his family in the way he should, or so his wife and son are kind of disappointed him, so he's feeling kind of emasculated. Excuse me. And then it starts to go from there. You start to learn things about the character, and he starts going out and trying to, earn back some of his masculinity in a way. You find out all sorts of stuff along the way, and also has Christopher Lloyd plays his dad, and he's not in it a lot, but he's here and there. He has a few cameos, and he's in the third act, and he's wonderful. But Bob Odenkirk is a freaking gem in this movie. This movie was top to bottom entertaining. I loved this film. I know Bob Odenkirk had some health problems this year, but I hope to God he, for his own sake, he's healthy, but I'd love to see him reprise this role in a sequel.
Oh, yeah.
Watching the special features that the stunt coordinator, who's also plays some parts of the movie to help with some of the fight choreography, he's great in that as well. Just says, Bob had no skills coming in to this, and you watch the fight choreography and the fight scenes, and he just pulls it off in such a really fun way. I absolutely loved Nobody. It was such a fun film. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to rewatching it.
Yeah, I really liked him in that.
That's my number 8.
My number 8 is, this has to be on your list too, Halloween Kills. Mm-hmm. Halloween, okay, so I'm not a huge horror movie person. We watched the Halloween movies for the first time in October during our 30 Days of Horror, and I loved them. I just loved Michael's story, and I loved him as a villain. I don't know. I just think he is likable, and I sympathize with him.
He's likable.
He is. I like him. He's torn up inside. He just needs some help and some love. Okay. Anyway, so I love the Halloween movies. So
he's a bad boy. He just needs the right woman to change him.
So then Halloween Kills come out, and we go see it in the theaters, and it's the most fun I've ever had watching a movie in the theaters. It was hilarious. It was harrowing. It was deep. It was
brutal.
It was brutal.
The kills were brutal.
Oh, yeah.
Brutal.
And you love every character in that movie. Every side character is amazing. Right? Everyone did an amazing job.
Yeah.
What were the names? Little guy.
Little John and Big John.
Little John and Big John.
Yeah,
Shout out to you guys.
Yeah,
my favorite ones.
Those guys are awesome.
But at the end, we were talking about it after, and it gets a lot deeper than I would expect a Halloween movie to get. They have themes of hate. They had themes of hate, and just what I took away from it is you can't fight hate with hate. Yeah, so it's love versus hate.
They kind of make, and it's not new to the series. They almost make the town of Haddonfield, where the movies take place, its own character. Mm-hmm. It's affected by having this famous serial killer and all these incidences tied to the city or town for so long that it affects them. I know that it has some controversy in the sense of if you're a diehard Halloween fan, a lot of people didn't like it.
It actually didn't score very high on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, but for us, I just think we didn't go into it. We just had fun with the Halloween movies. Mm-hmm. It was just she really took a liking to them, and I've always enjoyed them. And so we're looking forward to this one coming, and we didn't have any expectations for it, and we just kind of went in watching it just to be entertained, and ended up surprising us a bit as far as the plot and how much we like the direction they're taking. And it's a middle movie in a trilogy, so it's never going. It's always going. Sometimes those are really tough to nail because you need to watch it in the context of the first and third film.
Something also, it gave some more depth to Michael in the sense that you realize that he's not just like a bloodthirsty killer. Okay, anyways, it's directed by David Gordon Green. We get to see Jamie Lee Curtis in it, which is amazing. Amazing.
Who's the guy that played Michael?
The guy is James Jude Courtney.
Yeah, that dude's awesome.
He killed it.
Yeah, he frigging, the dude's like in his 60s. Because he plays an older Michael, but he just nails it in this movie. He's awesome.
And the daughter, who I assume is going to take on the torch in future movies, Andi Matichak, did a really good job as well. Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah.
My number 7, coming out in 2019, was The Irishman. So, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci, who we haven't seen anything in forever. It's this really, was it over 3 hours long?
3.5 hours.
3.5 hour long movie. We watched the Criterion Edition Blu-ray, which was awesome. Tons of special features, just really well transferred for Blu-ray. This movie didn't feel like 3.5 hours long. You're just pulled into this world the whole time, and the time just goes by, and it was such a captivating film. Every second of the film is captivating to me. You've got there's this de-aging process, because it kind of has these sort of like, it's not linear, it has these kind of flashbacks to show you the present, and then it kind of goes back, and then so there's this de-aging process with De Niro and with Pesci, I think, right?
Could have been terrible, but it was amazing.
So it looks a little weird when it first pops on screen, but then after like a minute or two, you just completely are lost in the movie. So it kind of centers around the Teamsters unions in the 50s? 60s?
I think so.
I don't even know. I should know the timeline. The Teamsters union, kind of just how the mob, the Teamsters union at the time, and politics and politicians all intertwined in America at that time, and all the different things going on. So it's fictional, but it's based around kind of real concepts and people, because Jimmy Hoffa's in it, played by Al Pacino. And if you can carve out the time, and you have, you like these types of movies, you like Scorsese, and you like these kind of films, definitely recommend. Scorsese obviously has this kind of thing where he likes to zoom in on people in these worlds that may not be, perceived as good worlds, or people involved would be very virtuous, but he kind of has this ability to pan in on them just as like a fly in the wall, and doesn't try to, as a filmmaker, doesn't try to force you to feel a certain way with the sound design or the cinematography, and he just kind of lets you peel back and watch it, and he just like all these shades of gray and black and white as well, like as far as morally, it's just such a good movie, and I loved it. Yeah, so that's my number 7.
That's a good one. My number 7, I'm not going to talk too much about because I know it's going to be on your list, is Pig. Released this year, 2021. Terry watched that movie when I was away one weekend, and then he texted me immediately and said, "This might be the best movie I've ever seen in my life." I cried like 17 times, and I'm like, okay, so then...
I did not cry 17 times.
And then...
I got something in my eye for a second, and then I tried to dig it out, and I poked myself in the eye too hard, and my eyes watered.
He's going to cry right now thinking about it. Okay, so then as soon as I got home, we rewatched it. It was like a few days after he had already seen it, I think. Exceptional movie. I'm not going to go on too much. It's directed by Michael Cernovsky, starring Nicolas Cage, Alex Wolff, and Adam Arkin. It's a story of a man who is a recluse. He makes his living by selling truffles to restaurants that are found by his truffle pig. His truffle pig is kidnapped, and it is the story of him trying to get his truffle pig back. Themes, I would say, are loss, grief, coming to terms with your past. Yeah, I'll let you touch on that more. That was my number...
You're just assuming it's going to be on my list.
That was... If it's not on your list, then maybe I'll talk about it more. That was my number 7.
Okay, so my number 6 is... Which I'm very surprised is even on my list before I went to see it. Is Spider-Man No Way Home 2021. Still in theaters. So...
Go see it.
I am a huge graphic novel, comic book fan. Grew up, Spider-Man was my jam, like as a kid, like all the way growing up. And then when I got into comics, when I was in my 10, 11, 12 into my teens. I just love Spider-Man. So the Tobey Maguire movies that came out in the 90s, whatever, 2000s were just my jam. I loved those movies. Thought they were really brought Spider-Man to the big screen. And then when we got the MCU, we got Tom Holland, Spider-Man. Obviously, those movies are great. Don't love every aspect of them and different things like that. But so anyway, going into this film, I don't like time travel and like
you like the multiverse
stuff and different dimension stuff. So that was always like a thing that kind of kept me from being super excited about this film, because obviously in the trailers, that's one of the big selling things is this multiverse stuff, and they're taking the MCU in this direction for various reasons. So there's a lot going on. The preview showed all these different villains from previous movies, and there was going to be this multiverse stuff, and I instantly was just like, okay, I don't know, we'll go see this, and we'll see how it is. They nailed this movie, for me at least. Like, there were so many moving parts, and everything just went cohesively together. Everything worked, and there's so many amazing moments and payoffs, and one of the bigger things I've always kind of had a problem with the Spider-Man in the MCU, and obviously it takes time to build the character, is that he's still this kind of, little young kid in this adult world, which is kind of the appeal to him in the comic books, and he's been kind of endearing thus far, but he hasn't been faced with many big problems. And the other thing is that he's kind of attached to Tony Stark in the movies, and he has all this tech, and one of the cool parts about Spider-Man is he was a scientist, and he came up with all his own gadgets and did things and had to solve problems because of this. And so some of the directions they're taking with the character seem to be kind of putting him in that position where he has to rely on himself going forward. And they give him some emotional heavy lifting here. It's some big, hugely impactful. And again, I'm going to talk about this one. I know it's probably going to be on your list, or it might be on your list as well. They give him some heavy stuff to deal with, and just Tom Holland is amazing in this movie as Spider-Man. He always is, but especially now, and he takes it up a notch. Like we're getting a more mature, Spider-Man at the end of this film. That's been through some things and changed his world, and it's awesome. This movie was fantastic. That's my number 6.
My number 6 is, you just said your number 6?
Mm-hmm.
My number 6 is Spider-Man.
Oh.
No Way Home 2021 in the theaters now. Go see it. Love it. I've always loved Spider-Man. Haven't seen all of the Spider-Man movies, but I was really excited to see this. I think this gave us... I wasn't really liking Tom Holland as Spider-Man as much. I think this gave us so much more to him. Like, I feel like he's going to become stronger. He's growing up. He's maturing. I love that about this. Yeah. I'm not going to go on too much because you already talked about it.
Yeah, but that was good. Yeah, you adding on to that point is like a big selling point for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so my number 5 was a movie that was actually recommended to me by a friend, and it took me a while to get and actually sit down and watch it. But Bone Tomahawk, coming out in 2015, directed by S. Craig Zahler, and it stars Kurt Russell, Richard Jenkins, Matthew Fox, and Patrick Wilson. So a bit of an ensemble cast there. So like Kurt Russell, come on, everyone should know who Kurt Russell is. Richard Jenkins, you know him if you saw him. You might not know him by name. He was in. He was the father in Step Brothers. He's in Cabin in the Woods. He's one of the guys at the beginning of the movie that's running the show in Cabin in the Woods. And Matthew Fox from Lost and Party of Five, and then Patrick Wilson starred in Insidious and The Conjuring. So you'd recognize him if you don't know his name. So this is a Western movie, lowish budget seemingly. Like I said, ensemble cast, Western horror drama type of film. So it's so gritty, so well acted, so entertaining. It's hard to watch. There's some scenes in this movie that are very difficult to watch. Some of the killing, and it's just brutal, but it really matches the tone of the film. Like sometimes there's just violence and brutality for the sake of this. I feel like this serves the story in this particular case, even though it's so tough to watch.
Yeah.
But Western film. Kurt Russell plays the sheriff of the small town. His deputy is Richard Jenkins. Patrick Wilson is the husband of the doctor's assistant, something like that. anyway, his wife goes missing, taken by these this tribe of what do they call them? Troglodytes. Cave dwelling kind of Native American depiction here, and they go looking for try to get his wife back, and Patrick Wilson's leg is broken, so he wants to make the journey, but he's got this cast and this bandage on there. It's just such a good movie, a good western, good just great acting.
Questing.
Yeah, it's like they're going on a quest.
Western questing.
Yeah. I don't know how to really describe the film or what do you even want to say about it. It's
just watch it.
Yeah, such a great movie. If you like westerns, if you like action, if you like independent films, this is a must watch. It really is just engaging the whole time. You can like really feel the journey they're on. Like they're just struggling to get through this and there's hopelessness, and they just try to figure this thing out and get it done. And the series of events unfolds in the third act, and it's got a very powerful third act and a good ending, I thought. But I loved Bone Tomahawk. That's my number 5.
Yep, Bone Tomahawk is great. Shocking. Amazing. My number 5, same genre, different movie. We just watched this yesterday? 2 days ago?
Yeah.
Old Henry. It's so good.
Be careful with what you're saying about this one.
I'm going to be very careful.
Okay.
Released this year. It's a Western. What can I say? It's directed by Potsy Ponsaroli. Never heard of this person, but they did a fantastic job. It's starring Tim Blake Nelson. Spectacular performance. Just
yeah. I don't know what. I don't know what to like. You'll recognize him if you're avid movie viewer. I don't know straight up what to say he's from. It's really notable, but he.
And if you're a country music lover like me, it has Trace Atkins in it as well.
Yeah.
Also has Gavin Lewis and Stephen Dorff. So the story of a man. Trying to be very careful. The story of a man and his son who live on a farm in the West, and they seem to not have very much money. They work all day long. The son seems really unhappy that he has to follow in his father's footsteps. He wants to leave the farm as soon as he can. Trouble ensues when the man finds a pack of money and a wounded person out in the desert, brings him back to aid him, and then stuff hits the fan.
Yeah, good movie.
Yeah, fantastic movie. The ending, I can't say anything. Just watch it. It's really, really good. I love Westerns. Even if you don't love Westerns, I think you'll love this movie.
You should love Westerns.
Yeah.
Are you done with that one?
I'm done with that one. That was my number 5.
That was your 5?
Yeah.
Okay. So my number 4. Like I said, anything in my list, you asked me any day of the week, I could have made a completely different list. This movie could move up and down. So my number 4 is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. From 2019, Quentin Tarantino film, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, and to a slightly lesser extent, but still in the movie, as Margot Robbie. So it's funny. I've never, when I was younger growing up, a lot of Tarantino films were really popular. Obviously, they're very popular. He's a very prolific director. But a lot of films really popular in my friends group, like Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction and stuff. And I've always seen the films, liked them, but never been super into them. And as I've kind of gotten a little bit older and kind of dove into, studying film a little bit and appreciating film, I've really started to enjoy Quentin Tarantino's movies. I love his long form scenes, long ports of dialogue, kind of juxtaposed against normal everyday dialogue, but then some shocking scene of violence or event, whatever. So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was just, again, it's a sort of a longer movie, eh? Mm-hmm. I don't remember the runtime.
We didn't realize it was going to be that long, and then we were like, is this still on? Again,
it's just like a snapshot out of, this time period of the 60s in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And DiCaprio plays this actor who's sort of had his height of popularity. Now he's kind of getting a little bit older. Older meaning like late 30s, early 40s type of stuff. And Brad Pitt plays his stuntman and his sort of gopher. And the two of them are getting themselves into these situations and being either on set or out in the world. And it's just sort of a snapshot of the time period. And it's sort of like like little bit of spoof, a bit of homage, a bit of satire. But again, kind of these long, drawn-out scenes of dialogue that are just super entertaining, really well acted. And Margot Robbie's in this film, doesn't get a ton of speaking roles, but she is on camera quite a bit. And she plays Sharon Tate, the actress that was murdered by part of the Manson murders in that time period. And so she's in the film. She's great, as always. I love Margot Robbie as an actress. But this whole Manson murder cult storyline is taking place sort of behind the scenes and in the front, and right in the front of the movie, with both actors kind of interacting with them in some context throughout the film. It's kind of happening in the background, and started heading towards the third act. Everything kind of comes to this crescendo, and I think that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has one of my most shocking, less press favorite endings of all time.
You said that
ever.
One scene was your favorite scene you've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah, it could be one of my favorite scenes I've ever seen in a movie.
I'm sure you may have seen it if you're watching this. I feel like a lot of people had seen it, and I'm surprised I hadn't.
I think a lot of people saw this movie. I don't know if I know it was popular.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone spoke to me about it in any type of detail, but I just kind of shrugged it off and decided maybe I'll see it when I see it. We bought the 4K disc, and put it in, and it looks beautiful, obviously, and it was just a hell of a good watch. That's my number 4.
My number 4 is The Irishman. 3.5 hour, crazy long movie. I think we took a break, but I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. This mafia, crime world. I just love that kind of story. I love crime, whether I'm reading it or watching it. But I think as much as it was a story, like a little snapshot into the life of crime, it was a story of growing old and what that means for you as you get older, the hopelessness of it, looking back on your life with regrets, but also with nostalgia, and remorse.
It's good insight. And I think that coupled with like growing old based off of your choices you make in life, right? Like growing old specifically in the context of, I was in organized crime, right? Type of thing, right?
Yeah. Definitely, because
how that affects your family. Sorry to interrupt.
I can't give away too much, but definitely, the hopelessness you feel as you get old. You're not in your prime anymore. You can't do all the things you used to do. Really, really beautiful film. The way it wraps up, I loved it. Yeah, that's it.
That's your number 4. That's your number 4.
It's your number 3.
Okay.
We're getting to the top here. I'm excited.
Top 3 again.
I don't know what your top. I think I don't know.
You're not gonna know what my number 3 is.
Put it down because I can almost see it.
Okay. So my number 3 is a movie that most people probably have never seen or even heard of. It's a 1985 film. It's called Come and See.
Ooh.
So I saw this movie. I bought the Criterion Collection Blu-ray off of, after reading about some reviews, and it was a blind buy for me, and I did not regret it. It probably one of the most difficult movies I've ever watched, in the sense like to see what you're like the imagery and what you're seeing and the circumstances. There's a lot of existentialism, and there's some kind of this mix of hyperrealism and like surrealism. So, sorry, what the movie's about. It's directed by Elim Kilmov. I'm going to get that wrong. It's a Russian film. So there's going to be subtitles, in a 1985 film. Starring, there's a lot of actors, but it's really seen through the eyes of this young kid, probably 13 years old, Alexei Kravchenko, as the actor. And you're seeing the story unfold through his eyes. World War II, and it's about the Nazi German occupation of Belarus at the time, and the Alexei plays this kid named Flyora, and he joins, against his mother's best wishes, he joins the Russian resistance, attempting to fight off or handle, fight back against the German occupants or occupation in their villages. So you're seeing things through his eyes, and it's just. They're trying to bring light to the atrocities that the Germans and the Nazis perpetrated against the populace of these villages and the people, the populace of the villages, and it's absolutely horrific. And if you start to go in reading some about the history about it, it's just we hear a lot about World War II, but there's so many angles to the history and different things that happened in different situations. Whether it wasn't just soldiers, it was the citizens and the populace of the villages that the war was being fought on in Eastern Europe, and it's really hard to watch, but it's such a powerful friggin' movie. Like, I sat here, again, you were away, and I watched this film, but I didn't think it would be up her alley to really sit and watch it. But and it probably wouldn't have been. This movie's not for everybody. If you're
you said it would have been hard for me to watch it.
Yeah. If you are interested in history and you can handle this type of stuff, I highly recommend this movie. It's one of the best wartime films I've ever seen. Beautiful movie, incredibly gut-wrenching, horrible and sad.
What would you say, like, as a warning of people who might not want to watch it?
Well, the warning is it's very graphic. They portray scenes in here of the things that were committed against just on both sides. Like, this tends to focus on the German occupants of Russia, but Russia did horrible things to the populace in the German cities and towns as well, according to history. And same with the Allies, same with the United States and Canada and British and stuff like that. It was just a horrible time. It's another angle to the horrors of war. Definitely an anti-war film. I highly recommend it if you're into that type of thing. At least look into it. Again, it's very art house. If that's not your thing, you're not going to want to watch this. There's a lot of symbolism, themes of loss of innocence, how this stuff affects children, things like that. But I won't ramble on much longer. But that's my number 3. Really amazing, beautiful movie, but tough to watch. But I'm glad I saw it. That's my number 3.
My number 3 is a movie that you showed me, thankfully. I'm so happy. I'm sure everyone's seen it because I think it's a cult classic. Is Good Will Hunting, released in 1997. I'm so sheltered. Live such a sheltered life.
She hadn't seen Good Will Hunting.
Also this year, on the side of that, I watched Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit for the first time. So that can just tell you how sheltered I am.
And Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And she hadn't seen Star Wars.
Yeah. A few of the Star Wars I watched this year for the first time. Yeah, just crazy times. That's why it was extra hard for me to make this list, because there's so many movies that I watched for the first time, including Good Will Hunting, which just weeped the entire movie. The dialogue is spectacular. So Good Will Hunting is directed by Gus Van Sant. It's starring Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Robin Williams, and Minnie Driver. It's about a man or a guy who's Matt Damon, who has above average intelligence, super high IQ, very good at math. He works as a janitor. He ends up getting in some trouble, and he's basically allowed to not go to jail as long as he attends therapy with Robin Williams. He then develops a relationship with Robin Williams. Robin Williams helps him come out of his shell, learn himself a bit more. Lots of there's coming of age, knowledge versus experience, mental health, and attachment issues, fear of attachment, fear of success, the unknown. It's amazing. Robin Williams' performance is A+++++. I was moved the entire movie, and it still sits with me. And I still think about the scene with Robin Williams and Matt Damon on the park bench. That's all I'll say. I'm sure you've seen it. Experience it for yourself if you haven't.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Robin Williams is a friggin' treasure in that film. Such an amazing actor.
Love him.
Okay, that was your number 3?
That was my number 3.
Okay, so my number 2, and I was really questioning putting this on my list as high as it is because we just watched it 2 days ago.
Oh no.
And that's part of the problem with some of these lists because
they're fresh in your memory.
Yeah, they're fresh in your memory. You watch something and it's really you're still reeling from it, or it's still really the impact is fresh. Mm-hmm. So my number 2 was Old Henry, and it was your number somewhere higher on our list. So again, director Poncaroli, sorry buddy, starring Tim Blake Nelson, Stephen Dorff, and again to a lesser extent Trace Atkins. So this type of movie, I'm more of a, with Jenna, I like all genres. I just love film, love movies. I'll watch anything as long as it's good. I tend to gravitate towards independent films and slice of life or life genre films. I'm a big fan of small focused stories, small cast, where a Lord of the Rings or even a 007 movie would be this grand sprawling world moving type of story that's got all these different moving parts. I like kind of focused stories. So this movie just nailed it for me. This movie, low budget, small cast, takes place like on one patch of land in the surrounding acreage, and that's it. Yeah. And all the acting's phenomenal. It's gritty. It's heartfelt. It's I don't want to go too much into it. It's essentially almost like, again, like in the vein of like Nobody and John Wick. It sort of has this kind of vibe where there's this guy, and there's something kind of about him, and he has some type of troubled past. We don't know what it is. Don't know the whole story. And he seems like a bit of a badass, but you're not quite sure because he doesn't really look like a badass. But he's got all this stuff. There's all these questions and mysteries surrounding him. He's got his he's a widowed guy. He's living with his son, who's probably 16 years old. Mm-hmm. Doesn't want to be on the farm anymore. Just counting the days till he can get off the farm. As Jenna mentioned before. Something falls in their lap. They get this injured stranger, and all this stuff ensues. And some trouble comes to the doorstep, and all this stuff ensues. It's a pretty quick watch. Like probably it's an hour and a half. Typical movie.
That makes sense.
Where the story goes is just it really hit all the points for me. Really cool second, third act stuff. The finale was amazing. You have. There's themes of, again, grief, the past coming back to haunt you, can't outrun the past type of theme, things like that. Really well interwoven story, even though there's not a lot going on. It's not a super complex story. It's just very cool movie. And again, it's my number 2 for the year, which I don't really know if I'm not saying much about it besides things you might have already said. It's very simple. Basically just breaking down the synopsis, but
people need to experience for themselves.
Yeah, again, it's a Western film. It's my kind of movie. It just nailed it for me. Like, I really have a thing too for these kind of lower level actors that don't get a lot of Hollywood push. They haven't been huge blockbusters, but you may recognize them, and then they pull off these kind of performances that are just jaw dropping. Yeah. I was pulled right into this movie. I friggin' loved it. I think everyone should. If you're a Western fan or you like independent films and that type of thing, watch this movie. It's awesome. That's my number 2. I think 2021.
Just rule of thumb: if it made both of our lists, watch it.
Yeah, watch it.
Because we're the authority of movies.
Yeah,
we know
some
everything.
people will look at some of these movies and be like, "What the friggin' crap is this crap I just watched? These introvert theater people are idiots." Well, that's why we stay in our basement and don't go out. I don't want to, and you don't like us. What's your number?
Okay, my number 2 is Take Shelter.
Almost made my list.
Movie moved me the second most of a movie this entire year. I think movies are always what you perceive them as, right? And what you take from the movie and how you connect to it. So what I see in a movie, someone else might not see it or understand it or connect to it as much.
I think that's especially true for this film.
Especially for this movie. I wouldn't say it would be a lot of people's favorite. Again, it's directed by Jeff Nichols, who, just phenomenal. I love him. And his brother does the music in a lot of
it. He uses his brother is one of my favorite musicians, Ben Nichols. And he's like his guitar and him, and he writes a lot of them. He uses a lot of his music, and he writes a lot of music for his brother's films, and he's an amazing artist.
So, directed by Jeff Nichols, starring Michael Shannon, who is so amazing, and Jessica Chastain as his wife. So, Michael Shannon is a family man. They're kind of struggling economically. It's him, his wife, and do they have 2 kids? The one
daughter.
Him and his wife and his daughter. Michael Shannon kind of is the entire movie feeling the pressure of trying to take care of his family. He begins spiraling throughout the movie thinking that there's going to be some sort of disaster, and he feels like he needs to build a shelter. Pretty easy premise. There's a lot more depth to it than that. There's a lot of themes of mental health, his relationship with his mother, who is mentally ill, and then him not wanting to see that in himself, but as he's spiraling, he's trying to tug away from that. Just so beautiful. The relationships in this movie are so well done. Jessica Chastain's character as the wife is so... You just feel for her so much because she wants to be there and be supportive for her husband. She tries to, and she is up until the very end, but she's also trying to, root him in reality.
Yeah, she's she does a good. They do a good job of balancing her between being this kind of like berating wife, also the sympathetic, supportive wife. And when she is berating, you sympathize with her for why she's being berating. But then you also sympathize for Michael Shannon's character. Jeff Nichols is, for me personally, one of the reasons he's probably my favorite director, or one of my favorite directors, is he's extremely good at writing. In my personal opinion, the thing that stands out really a lot for me is he writes the male perspective, writes from the male perspective very well, and the male struggle especially.
So I was going to touch on that,
sorry.
and like how, so basically a big theme. So I thought it was mostly, as I was thinking about it more, I thought it was mostly about mental illness, and you see it a lot from Michael Shannon character's perspective. Like you almost think that everything he's doing is warranted for a little bit, and then you realize he is losing it a bit. However, you just feel for him because he's just a man trying to provide for his family and keep his family safe. And he's feeling all this pressure. I think economically it's piling on. He wants to keep them safe, but he also wants to be able to provide for them. And it's just driving him completely bonkers. And like you said, the way Jeff Nichols portrays the male struggle is just beautiful. Yeah. He does that in more...
He writes women well too, I think. Too.
Yeah.
I can't connect to that as well as I can the male stuff. And he does a really good job of the male internal dialogue. Like he's struggling in this movie with potentially his mental health, financially, and he's trying to be there for his wife and for his family and be, and for his employer. And it just does a really good job of feeling that like horribleness that you can feel as a man trying to, juggle all these things and feeling all that weight on your shoulders constantly.
Yeah. It's nice because you don't see a lot of that in modern day cinema.
Yeah, so, it's really well done.
I enjoy it.
Good choice.
Definitely watch that movie. Yeah. If you want to cry. And
that's a movie that would have been on my list if I hadn't. Again, that was a movie I'd seen and shared with her as well. So I'd seen that movie before. It wasn't my first time seeing it this year. Okay, so I'm up to my number one. We're gonna do my honorable mentions before I do my number one. So this was any one of these films could end up in my top 10. If I can make me rewrite this thing tomorrow, they might be on there. So my honorable mentions are first Rushmore by Wes Anderson. We just recently rewatched the Criterion Edition Blu-ray. Rushmore is probably... I haven't seen all of Wes Anderson's films, but I love Wes Anderson as a director. This kind of... he has this very unique style, and Rushmore is one of his earlier films, and it's just a delightful movie. It's got Bill Murray in it, and Jason Schwartzman, a young Jason Schwartzman, and it's an awesome movie. Shawshank Redemption, but specifically I've seen that movie. You're nuts if you hadn't seen that movie until this year. And it was the 4K version specifically. The 4K release of Shawshank Redemption came out late this year, and it is breathtaking and brings new life to that outstanding movie. Awesome movie. Riders of Justice. This was another kind of a foreign film. Mads Mikkelsen stars in this film. Again, as a kind of a grizzled military guy whose wife is killed on a subway in a potential gang-related assassination. And this movie, check this movie out. It is more foreign film, so it has subtitles, but it's funny, it's heartfelt, and it's action-packed. Awesome movie. So, Halloween Kills. This easily could have been on my list, and for all the reasons Jenna mentioned, we talked about earlier about Halloween Kills. The movie's awesome. Rear Window and Vertigo. So,
how many honorable mentions did you have?
I had a hard time.
I thought we were only on for 5.
I'm doing more than 5. I couldn't.
Oh, no, I took mine off my list.
So, Alfred Hitchcock released a handful of his films, again, his most notable ones on 4K. So, Rear Window and Vertigo on 4K are beautiful, beautiful transfers, beautiful releases. These movies are awesome. And if you've never seen these movies and you're a bit of a classic film nut, even if you aren't, Rear Window especially, is very digestible, great movie. The 400 Blows. This was a movie, again, I watched, she didn't watch. I watched this on the Criterion channel. It's a French film about a young boy who's just can't seem to make it work at school, doesn't have the most stable home life, and it's just kind of this perspective of his life day to day, and it's just very captivating. 2 films by Akira Kurosawa I took in this year. Akiru, which is about an elderly gentleman who's basically a pencil pusher at the city, working for the city management, blah blah blah, in like 1950s Japan, and he gets diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer, and it's sort of existential crisis for the last bunch of months that he is alive, and it's an amazing movie. Coupled with Seven Samurai, which is probably Akira Kurosawa's one of his most notable films. I watched that yesterday, and again, it's a great 3.5 hour Japanese epic about these farming village in 16th century Japan, being subject to these raids by bandits every year, stealing their crops. They try to hire these samurai to protect them. Amazing film. Paths of Glory, Kirk Douglas and Stanley Kubrick. Awesome movie. And the last one, which probably should have made the list, but again, I'd seen it before, but the 4K release of Donnie Darko. Awesome movie. I apologize for the length of it.
I was told 5 honorable mentions, and it took me so long to narrow them down, and this guy did like 17.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is what it is.
What's your number one?
Okay, so my number one is Pig. So again, I had a hard time whether I even wanted to put this as my number one. But again, thinking back to the films of this year that moved me the most, or that I had, there's a lot of movies, but when I saw Pig, I'm like, that's my film of the year. That's my film of the year. And then some distance between it, and maybe it's not as impactful, but I was trying to think of something else to put number one, and I guess, like, for right now, it's there. Again, director Michael Sarnowski, starring Nicolas Cage, Alex Wolff, Adam Arkin. Which stands out the most to me, because I've always liked Nicolas Cage. Most people like Nicolas Cage. He's,
I wasn't crazy about him.
We might not be crazy about him. You know him. He's fine. Nicolas Cage is fine.
Was wild
before this, right? Yes. He's fine, and sometimes he's really good. Sometimes he's not so good. But this movie is his best performance by far and away. This movie is just Nicolas Cage at his absolute finest. This guy's, as he's getting older, is finding his friggin' groove. And he's been putting out the last handful of years a lot of films, but a lot of independent films and good performances, like most notably Joe. Some other movies that he's been in. That's another good movie that could have made the list. But he's phenomenal in this. This really good, especially from three perspective, kind of deals with, again, grief, loss, how people process trauma, and how they come out the other end of those things, mixed with, because of grief and loss, moving on in spite of your loss or your grief, and how to do that in a healthy way. Acceptance. There's even some elements in this film of, like, there's some surrealism aspects to it. Like, there's some elements of your social standing and how you have to change or alter your gifts and things that you like to do, or the thing you're best at to make it in the world. And the perspective of shutting that off and just doing it in the most natural, real, grounded way that you can, as opposed to altering it to please others. Movie's just got so many great scenes. And again, this is art house to the highest degree.
If someone doesn't know what art house is.
Yeah, sorry. So art house is when a genre, a style of movie making where it's more interested in telling a message or a philosophical ideology. It's not an ideology. It's more interested in getting some type of meaningful message across versus entertaining you.
There's a lot more focus on, like, the cinematography and, like,
the art of filmmaking.
The art of
filmmaking. And utilizing those things.
Yes, some
it's
people
more
would
artsy,
say.
art house. So yeah, that's my number one. Pig is my number one for the year. A lot of people will think that's nuts, especially if they've seen it. They may not like it or get it, but again, what Jenna said earlier, how you connect to a movie can be very personal, especially with these kind of art house films. There might be aspects of it that really drive your feelings for them, and this movie really hit me hard, and in a good way, and I absolutely loved it. That's my number one.
Cool. I guess I'll get into my honorable mentions. My first one is St. Vincent, with Bill Murray, Melissa McCarthy, Jaden, I can't say his last name, that kid, Jaden Leah Burher, and Naomi Watts. Naomi Watts was so good in the movie.
She's fine.
Basically, Bill Murray is an old man who is grumpy, and he's a grumpy old man, and ends up having neighbors move in, who's Melissa McCarthy and her son, and forms a relationship with the son. And that's all I'll tell you. Beautiful movie. I weeped at the end. Watch that one.
Great movie.
Number 2, another Jeff Nichols film, Midnight Special. I'm surprised. I thought that might be on your list.
It almost was. It wasn't even my honorable mentions. There's too many things. 10 movies? Are you kidding?
Starring Joel Edgerton and Michael Shannon. Jaden Martell is the kid. And Kristen Dunst. Adam Driver and Sam Shepard just stacked.
Sam Shepard's awesome.
boy or a father and a son. The son has special powers, and a government agency is chasing after the son. Wild adventure film, very moving.
Yeah, like an art house sci-fi.
Yeah,
but more art house than sci-fi, but still some good elements of sci-fi.
Yeah, and the sci-fi gets like unveiled as the movie goes on.
And Joel Edgerton. Joel Edgerton's
amazing.
Awesome.
In that movie. Yeah. Number 3, I told you after we watched this, I'm like, this is my favorite movie I've ever seen. Palmer.
Oh, I forgot about Palmer.
Justin Timberlake and the kid Ryder Allen. Oh, their dynamic, their chemistry.
Apple TV only?
I think it was on Apple TV.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think it would be good because, no offense, Justin Timberlake, but like he's not like the best actor.
He killed it in this movie. Timberlake is awesome in this movie.
Wow, yeah. The entire movie, I think I cried the entire movie. Justin Timberlake, kind of similar to St. Vincent, grumpy guy, not old, grumpy guy, lives in a trailer.
Yeah, it's the Odd Couple story, right? Like
grumpy guy lives in a trailer, ends up forming a relationship with this little boy who is different, very different than other little boys.
Watch Palmer. It's a good flick. Everyone will like Palmer.
So good. Yes. And Juno Temple Alicia. Juno Temple. Juno Temple plays the mom, and she does a really good job at playing like a drug addict.
She's in
mother.
Ted Lasso, right? She's the actress in Ted Lasso?
Yeah, I think so. Number 4 was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
They didn't make your list, eh? I'm surprised they didn't make your top 10.
I know. It just didn't... It was amazing and hilarious and fun, but it wasn't as fun as like Halloween Kills and Spider-Man to me, and it didn't move me as much as the other movies. But I loved it. And again, Quentin Tarantino, Margot Robbie, Leonardo, Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt's amazing. I love Brad Pitt. I realized that this year when I also watched Fight Club for the first time. So that was my number 4. My number 5 you also mentioned was Bone Tomahawk. When we were watching this movie, was like, I hate this movie because it's so horrible to watch. And afterwards, I was like, I feel sick.
You mean like how graphic the violence was?
Yeah, the graphic, gory violence. But the story is so amazing. Like you said, hopelessness. Just friggin' clawing your way. Trying to save your family that you love. Sacrifice. Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful movie. Can't think of any other ones that I had on the list. Joe is on the list.
I would have put I, Tonya on there as well. If you haven't seen I, Tonya, starring Margot Robbie, which is like a dramatic / comedic retelling of the Tonya Harding, what's the other girl get whacked with? What's the
friggin'... so bad.
The Tonya Harding thing when she whacks
the other chick.
The chick with
what was her name?
Chick with the knee with the pipe and the 1990s figure skating scandal. If you haven't seen I, Tonya, watch it immediately. It's
Tonya is good.
Wonderful movie, so good.
I also had The Witch, I think.
You put The Witch on your
on my honorable mentions, yeah.
Huh?
I know.
All right, now time for number 1. What's your number 1?
Oh, my number 1! Oh my gosh, I forgot. My number 1 is Shawshank Redemption. Can't believe I watched it for the first time ever. It was released 1994, the year I was born. So obviously amazing. I honestly think it could be the best movie ever made, and that's not saying much because I haven't seen that many movies.
You've seen a lot of movies.
I've seen a lot of movies now, and
it's your favorite movie ever of all time now.
It's my favorite movie of all time, and a lot of Google agrees with me that it's been named the best movie ever made by a lot of people.
It's a respectful choice for favorite movie of all time. Sure.
Directed by Frank Darabont, starring Tim Robbins, who I saw the picture of him now. I'm like, you've aged a lot. I realized it was 1994. Morgan Freeman, just spectacular in everything he's in. William Sadler, Bob Gunton, Clancy Brown, like just every performance is spectacular. The story of, I'm sure you've all seen it, so I don't think I'm going to get into the plot too much, but just redemption, as in the name, hope, resilience, friendship, freedom, but then also not being able to grasp that freedom and speaking to the prison system and how hard it is for these men who get out to figure out what to do with themselves. And just I had to take a break during this movie because I was crying so hard.
Yeah.
I was ugly crying so hard in this movie that I didn't think I'd be able to make it through. And we had to take a break and you had to give me a pep talk and then I was okay. But just shatter your heart into a million pieces and watch this movie because it's the best movie ever made.
The only 2 movies you have to take a break from were this and The Conjuring. Mm-hmm. I had to convince her to finish The Conjuring because it was so...
The Conjuring is terrifying.
So terrifying. That's a good number 1.
Yeah.
And good insights.
Okay, for 2 introverts, we're talking a lot, so let's...
Yeah, so we got to get back to some stuff, so
See ya.
We'll get you out of here.
And Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.